Now, obviously, you all know who this is. Vincent Kennedy McMahon Jr. When I was 8 years old, this man was still in charge of WWE. He ran wrestling for 50 years. This man has done everything for himself, for his money, for his brand, for his image. This I don't even know where to start. This man took over from his father, said he'd never take over the competition. He'd never go global. He'd never do this, and this. He bought AWA. He got Terry Gordy over there. He made Hulk Hogan. He came up with the Undertaker character. He told Mick Foley, go off that fucking cell. He still ran the show when Owen Hart died right before the Intercontinental Championship opening match. He purposefully did not push anybody else because he just loved John Cena as much as he did. He used Eddie Guerrero's death for countless storylines, even weeks, months after his death. The man who never said people like Cody Rhodes could never be the guy. He won a steroid scandal and almost went to federal prison, all because of his own ego. This guy almost just ruined the entire name of Chris Benoit. This is a guy who has done every low in this country. He's made Trish Stratus get on all fours and bark like a dog on Monday Night Raw. He turned Stone Cold Steve Austin heel because he thought it was best for business. He's purposefully shoved guys like Roman Reigns and Omos down your throats in the current era because he thought that his image of big guys were the only reason that the professional wrestling business could succeed. He never gave shots. He only cared about himself. Now, I am about to start watching the Vince McMahon docuseries, and this is something that's been almost my life for, God, how fucking long? Over 11 years now, and this is something that I think is honestly life-changing for me. This is something that even bigger than the realness of the real lives of professional wrestling. This is bigger than that. This is exposing the entire history of Vince McMahon and his basically crimes against humanity, in my opinion. This is, in my opinion, the most, sad to say, the most important and the most evil man in not just wrestling, but sports history. This is the one guy, when you look at wrestling and its global expansion, you think Vince McMahon. And that's something that just, as much as I hate to admit it, it doesn't sit right with me. But as I watch this after each episode, I'm going to keep up with you guys. Gonna keep you updated, and this video is just gonna be a compilation of me talking about the Vince McMahon docuseries, and I have zero idea what to expect, but I guess, in a way, thank you, and fuck you, Vince McMahon. Enjoy the video. So I just got done watching the first episode. It talked about Vince from when he met his dad to buying the company or overtaking the company from his dad, and him wanting to make it mainstream, and how he bought out all the territories, and he wanted to make everything, every form of entertainment. He didn't want to make it wrestling. He wanted to make it sports entertainment, and just overall, he wanted to make his organization the number one globally, or at least in America. I'm assuming you'd want it globally too. But talked about how his version of stories and how wrestling works and how, especially when he got Hulk Hogan, when he made the Hulk Hogan character, he couldn't have him beat Bob Backlund. That's a two babyface match. So he had to get Iron Sheik, and it was back in a time where everything was, if you were a foreigner to the US, you were the bad guy, quote unquote. And Vince said something that, like, the morals of today and the morals of different were the morals of back then were different. Like, yeah, that's obviously, everything makes sense for the time period. You know what I mean? Everything connected. And then Vince, after all that, he's like, "Oh, we gotta have our version of a Super Bowl, our version of a World Series, our version of Stanley Cup. Is we have to create something WrestleMania." And how Vince put all of his eggs into one basket, and he had no other baskets lying around if this became a failure. So it talked about the success of WrestleMania, and the next episode is going to talk about his steroid scandals, especially the one with Richard Belzer, just his scandals, and then upbringing of competition and blah blah blah. But yeah, I'll see you guys after the second episode. So I just got done watching the second episode. It talked about 3 of the biggest pro wrestling scandals of all time, which is the Ring Boys rape trial, which I'm gonna say the trial, and then I'm gonna say what I personally believe. Again, my personal belief. I'm not saying any of this did happen, did not happen, because then again, this was a different time. The stuff's on the internet. If you want to look at it, get an opinion for yourself. Please do not go off of what I believe as to what you believe. Please do not. But the Ring Boys sex scandal, they had 2 other guys, and I swear to God, I just watched it and I forgot their names. And then Pat Patterson. In the episode, they were trying to say that Pat Patterson was totally innocent. That, it's not that I don't believe he's innocent. I don't believe it's to the limit as to what they said it was. I think he did it. I think he did do it. But you gotta consider the position Patterson was in also. Because he was gay, and this was a business at a time period where people didn't really care about gay people anymore. Or they didn't care at all. They were like, "Oh, you're gay? Sorry, we're not gonna like you." That was the time back then. But regardless, that's what I believe about that. The referee, Rita Chatterson, I think it was, and Vince's rape scandal. Vince denies doing it at all. I think he did it. I think he did do it. Not to the full extent that they're trying to proclaim, but I do think he did it. I don't think he did it as often or as in a way as they try to sell you on, but I do think it happened. I don't think it happened as much as it did, but I do think it happened. And then the steroid scandal and Hulk Hogan leaving for WCW. The steroid scandal is just a thing. It happened. It was the nature of the business at the time. People took steroids before it became illegal. They were just buying them from the doctor, and they got big bodies now. And that was Vince's drawing point. And I get that. I can understand where you were going with that from the business perspective. This is one of the most true, and also, in my opinion, hard to fully comprehend scandals. Because, yeah, like I said, nature of the business, people took the steroids, people got, if you were huge and you were there and you weren't and you weren't taking time off, you were on the card. You know what I mean? You were there. I mean, like they said in the videos, like, oh, the government came up to Terry Golda and was like, Terry Bollea. I know I keep pronouncing his name wrong, by the way, I'm sorry. Hulk Hogan, they came up to him and was like, yo, you gotta say this or we're gonna put the microscope under you instead. I don't think that happened. I think Hogan with going to WCW was like, I think in his mind, because also they said, Hogan said, oh, I'll never work for competition, or oh, I'm only gonna do movies, or blah blah blah. I don't think he meant it. I think in his mind, from a mental standpoint, he wanted to take Vince down. He wanted to go to WCW, and I honestly think, still to this day, he wanted to run the company into the ground. I think Hulk Hogan had the idea of, if I go over there because I was already this huge selling point for WWE, I'm going to go to WCW, do that 10 times more, make 10 times more money, and I'm going to see if Vince is even still standing by the end of it. That's what I think happened. Again, please let me say that all of the things that I have just said in this specific section of the video, please do not believe my belief. Like, if you only watch this video and you don't do any research for yourself and you only believe what I tell you, please do not do that. Please go online, do research, look at the articles, look at look at everything for yourself and form your own opinion. Please do not go off of my beliefs only. Okay? But that's all I gotta say about the second part. I'm actually gonna go to sleep right now, and tomorrow I'm gonna start watching, so the third episode at least. So please just stay on this ride with me, I guess. Peace. So I just got done watching the third episode of the Vince McMahon documentary. There's 4 main things that I want to talk about. The first, they only showed it for a little bit, but they talked about Wendy Richter getting screwed out of the WWE Women's Championship by Fabulous Moolah, aka Spider Lady, because she was in a mask that night, and, you know, she got rolled up, her shoulders were 5,000 feet off the mat, and the ref counted to 3 anyway. What they said is, Vince said, you know, we don't want you to be the women's champion anymore. I want you to drop the title. And Wendy said no, and so they had Fabulous Moolah in the mask come out and purposefully just try to keep her on the mat and screw her, right? I don't think that's what happened. I think what truly happened is Vince, by Moolah, was told, give me the women's championship back, because I want to come back and I want to be the women's champion again, because I'm just fucking amazing, and Wendy's not going to be the champion. So Vince said, okay, take it from her. And that's what I truly believe happened. I am not, again, this entire video, do not take what I say as the truth. It might not have been the truth. I was not even alive. I was not there. I do not know what happened. I'm saying off of pure what they said in the documentary and what I think. Next is Lex Luger becoming the new face of, you know, the WWF after Hogan, and then, like, Savage left. You know, like, they got a couple of the big stars leaving, right? And then they talked about how it was led into the new generation, obviously, in the mid-90s, with Bret as the charge. Bret in my opinion, even if I was watching back then, and still to this day, I don't think he was the right guy to lead the new generation. I think it should have been either Shawn Michaels or Razor Ramon. Those are the two people that I think should have been that new. I'm not saying they would have been on the level of Hulk Hogan, but I think they should have, quote unquote, been the new Hulk Hogan in terms of who you put your brand on under, you know? Lex Luger to me was never going to be the guy. Then they talked about, the outsiders, they Hall and Nash, they go to WCW, and there's, and then the third man, and blah, blah, blah. And to me, the WCW invasion was the very first, to me at least, real life storyline in professional wrestling. There's a couple other examples of, things where it can be considered it was all real, or like it was like something that the two people that had the beef came up with, but they just, they went their own way with it. No. The entire way that the NWO storyline, even with the lawsuits and everything, was scripted, was real. They didn't do it because of the script, they did it because it was real, in my opinion. And then they talk about the Montreal Screwjob. Now, obviously, there's so many different versions of the story. Again, please do not say that what I'm saying is the truth. This is all of my opinion. What I think happened the day of the Screwjob and leading up to it was, I think Vince went up to Shawn, or first he went up to Brett and said, we clearly can tell you're leaving. Please just give me my title back, Britt was like, sure, I'll do it this way, but I'm not dropping it to Shawn. He's not going to beat me. He's not going to do this. It was the fact of Shawn. Shawn Michaels was the definitive factor as to why Bret Hart did not want to drop the WWF Championship. So Vince, came out with the couple ideas, and I truly think Vince said no to all the ideas. He said, you're either going to get pinned or submitted at Survivor Series. You're not leaving. You're giving the title to Shawn. And then, Shawn was told, Brett said no, get the title from him. So I think it was only Vince, Shawn, and Earl Hebner knew what the actual, finish was going to be. I think it was only the three of them that knew it was going to be the sharpshooter into the call. But anyways, that's just crazy how much, the steroid scandal and then the curtain call, everything changed. Professional wrestling, not even just WWE and WCW, professional wrestling as an entire business practice was changed forever in the in the early to mid 90s. There was no way of the handshake, you listen to the boss, you do what he says, business anymore. That wasn't a thing anymore. But I'm about to watch episode 4. It's starting, I believe it's going to talk about, the start of WWE going into the Attitude Era and the creation of, Vince McMahon and everything. Tell you guys what I know and what I think when I watch the next episode. Let me start by saying that, I was not prepared to watch the 4th episode. Even though I wasn't alive the mid to late 90s until 2002, when the era, the Attitude Era was gone. There were two things that were, specific in the Attitude Era, and the second one isn't really specific, but it was just something that it always still to this day it runs in people's heads when they come think about the Attitude Era, right? The first was, WWE and their presentation of women back then. Women were eye candy. They were used in more of a sexual manner. They weren't used to wrestle. They were used as valets. They showed their tits a lot, It was thongs and bikinis and bra and panties matches. There was dog food fights, pudding matches. That was an entire thing because The male audience wanted to see it. Vince said, okay, this draws money, give me that. Which I can understand to a time. I am not agreeing with that at any sense of the word. And they mentioned, like, would you let your kids watch this and blah, blah, blah. I get I'm only 19 years old, guys. But personally, here's my thing. There are certain things, and not even just wrestling, and entertainment, and any form of media, anything in life. If you know things are wrong, but you are looking at it and you're still telling yourself, that's wrong. Women shouldn't be degraded on television, but I'm watching it, but I know it shouldn't be. I don't have a problem. Even in the future, I would not have a problem with my kid watching a Sable and Sunny, bikini contest. I would say, as long as you wouldn't do something like that, I don't care what you watch. You can watch murder documentaries. You can watch The Attitude. You can have porn magazines. It's as long as you know not to sexually degrade or potentially assault or anything to a woman, never, let alone on global television. Don't ever do that. I'm okay with you doing that. I'm okay with you watching stuff. Every teenager is horny. What the hell is that gonna stop? It's a natural thing in people. Don't get me wrong, there's a limit to everything, and that's what I'm saying. You gotta know where the line draws. You can look at stuff, you can watch stuff, as long as you don't practice it, don't think it's okay, and don't do it yourself. I don't have a problem with what you watch or do in your free time. You know what I mean? But, the second thing. Everyone knows about May 23rd, 1999, the Over the Edge pay-per-view. Owen Hart died. And the situation itself was, everyone says, it was an accident, and, it was the harness and everything was faulty. I get that. It's such a moment in history. The thing that I had a problem with was you don't continue the show. And they were showing footage of the show, like of everyone wrestling. They were talking about, everyone went through it, everyone knew that he was dead, but they continued the show on, right? Number one, don't ever do that. And Vince said in the documentary, he said, if I died and people knew, I would want the show to continue on. No, that's not how it works. But, the thing that got me was, for the first time in my entire life, in my almost 20 years of being here, I saw actual footage of the show and Owen Hart's blood on the mat. That sickened me. That for most people, your best friends or one of your best friends' blood and dead bodies' blood, let alone, just blood, is on the mat and you're wrestling right next to that. And he's already dead before you come to the ring. I don't know what to think when I saw that. And this next part is probably, there's probably going to be that one diehard fan that thinks, oh, you shouldn't think that. Even though I wasn't there, Owen is so important to wrestling that I feel like I knew him. Do you know what I mean? He's so loved and appreciated still to this day that I feel like I knew him in some capacity. When I found out when I was a kid that he died, and then a couple years later when I found out he died that way, it felt like a personal dig. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, you can disagree with that statement, and I truly understand if you disagree with me saying that. But as a wrestling fan, there are certain things you just don't want to see when you're watching professional wrestling. You know what I mean? But, Anyways, yeah, I'm about to watch the 5th episode, and I can't even begin to imagine what's in the rest of this if we're talking about something as heavy as Owen. But obviously this thing's gonna cut, and the next part of the video will be put in. Episode 5 starts now. So the 5th episode, I don't really have much to say. It kind of jumbled a lot together. It felt mainly talked about like the purchase of WCW, Sable's lawsuit, and then her coming back. Trish Stratus barking like a dog. How it's not a good idea to have family in the business. Shane McMahon leaving WWE the first time. It more just focused on a family business aspect of an episode rather than anything that was like a scandal or like a storyline or like something big that happened in the business. It was more just of the McMahon family themselves. And that's all I really got to say about episode 5. I'm about to watch the last episode. And they're talking about the Vince McMahon sex scandal from 2022. And I think we're finally getting to Chris Benoit. So I'll let you guys know what happens in the last episode. Man, that last episode was jam-packed. The two main things was obviously Chris Benoit and then the lawsuits. Both are to be very seriously taken things, right? I'm gonna give you my personal thoughts on both. Again, please, I know I've said it thousands of times in this video, please do not take anything that I say as the truth. I could be completely wrong. I could be completely right. I have no idea because I was never there. So please do not only look at me and say, that guy's right. No. Chris Benoit, in my opinion, is one of the... I'm not exaggerating, one of the very few that I think is one of the most perfect in-ring guys that's ever existed. Very few people can touch him in terms of being an in-ring wrestler. And they mentioned in the last episode with Christopher Nowitzki being in there. Let me know if you guys remember him. He does research on concussions and CTE. And it's obviously proven that Chris Benoit had CTE. And, people were brought up in the generation of, just because you got hit a couple times doesn't mean you got brain damage. No, if you're getting hit 300 days a year in the head very hard by either a fist, chairs, etc., and you're doing diving headbutts to another man's pure skull on top of that, eventually your brain's probably going to switch up a bit. I think Chris was actually a very nice guy. Do I think what he did was wrong? Absolutely. I'm not discrediting that factor. I think he was great until he really started to get for the CTE to really start showing. I think then he switched, and then on that stupid, disgraceful night in 2007, I think that was his absolute, that was not Chris Benoit, but that was Chris Benoit. I'm not saying he didn't know what he was doing. I think the CT finally drove him to insanity. That's my personal thought. I think his head and brain turned him into this monster. And then he unfortunately did what he did. The Vince McMahon allegations is something entirely. I truly think Vince is one of the worst human beings that's ever existed in the history of professional wrestling. I think he's an absolute terrible with morals, with just him, the way he views people and the way he views certain things. I think he's an absolute terrible human being. Granted, nobody will ever know who he is. I do think he did some of the things he did. I think some of the other people that have been accused probably did not, or maybe it was exaggerated a teeny bit. But I think Vince did do... I'm not saying he did, everything and everything's a correct statement, but I do think he did some things over the course of, 60 fucking years in the business. But, this video, you've seen me just, this is real me. I'm showing you who I am as a person, I feel like, in this video, and as much as I love doing this for you guys, I also am a different person too. I don't want to say I'm like Vince. I'm not a completely different person, and I'm nowhere as the the greatest guy on the planet. Let's not go crazy. But I think the best way to sum up Vince is no one's perfect, and some people will never be thought of as good people. But then again, none of us will ever know. But this has been my thoughts on the Vince McMahon documentary. Let me know your thoughts about the documentary if you watched it in the comments, and please, for the love of God, this is the last time I'm going to say it, but for the love of God, do not only look at my words and think it's the correct statement. It's not. Probably not. Probably is. Potentially. I have no control over what you guys think, but please don't only look at my video and think, he probably knows what he's talking about. I might not. But anyways, guys, that's all I have to say about this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Smash the like button, please subscribe to follow me on all my social medias, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!